And now to something completely different. Hi there, and welcome to Joe Cood's Workbench. I will do a short break in my ongoing CNC 3040 series for this month and see whether I can make this radio sound a bit less cheap, hollow and plasticky. I bought a CD radio for my kit. It is pretty simple. The functions are just CD, radio and audio input. Philips sold these radios for about €60, so the quality should be a bit above the cheapest CD radios that you can get at the moment. They even bothered to give the radio a bass boost switch and mentioned it on the front. That's always a good sign, right? Here is some royalty-free music. I will use that music for audio testing and comparison in this video, so I recommend to watch it with decent headphones. I promise to not make sudden loud noises. This is how the radio sounds. Don't get me wrong, I didn't expect great sound, but I was still disappointed. In my opinion, the sound is flat and hollow, and there is obviously almost no bass. And I think the main reason for the bad sound is that they have used these pretty awful loudspeakers that are common in cheap radios since the last 40 years. I will check what's inside the radio in a minute. In the meantime, I found a simple set of second-hand computer speakers from Amazon Basic. My hope is that the loudspeakers in here sound better than the ones in the radio. This is my test audio playing via the speakers. For whoever designed them, well done, sort of. The sound is surprisingly okay for such a small and cheap speaker set. Let's crack the radio open. I am always surprised how empty these radios are nowadays. The loudspeakers are indeed very cheap looking, and they are quite badly glued in place. I am not sure whether it is visible on camera, but there are some gaps between the speakers and the enclosure. That is not a good sign and makes decent sound outright impossible. The glue is some sort of gunk. I set my soldering iron to about 250 degrees centigrade and used the tip to soften the glue. After some careful prying and pulling, I got the speakers out. I also took the Amazon speakers apart and removed the loudspeakers. Here's a comparison between the two of them. The loudspeakers from the radio have a paper diaphragm that is flat, thin, and quite large compared to the voice coil. The suspension feels relatively stiff and the magnet is quite small. These factors in combination make it hard for the speaker to reproduce any decent sound. The other speakers are smaller, but they have a larger voice coil in comparison and a stronger magnet. The diaphragm is stiffer but suspended softer, and it can move back and forth much better. These speakers are, simply spoken, more powerful, as in they can follow the sound signal much more precise against the air pressure than the other ones. That is why the speaker set sounds pretty decent despite the small size. Also, there's a hint of an actual acoustic system here, because the enclosures are airtight and there's a bass resonance tube. The radio has none of these features and just uses the plastic case as speaker enclosure. My plan is simple. I will replace the speakers in the radio with these ones. I am aware that in here they might not sound as decent as they did in the enclosures, but I still hope that the sound will improve at least a bit. The new speakers are smaller but deeper than the old ones. I need some sort of adapter plate to make them fit in the radio. I designed the plate in FreeCAD. It has a ring that fits on the edge where the old speaker was resting on. The speaker holes are round, but because the front plate is one injection molded part, these walls here are not straight. I added a clearance angle in my adapter plate to compensate for that. The new speakers sit on the other side of the adapters and are held in place with screws. There is no good way to screw the adapter plates in the case though, and so I have to use glue. I will use a method that is best explained as, let's call it hot glue soldering. I start with creating long, thin snakes by pushing hot glue onto a metal plate. I will use them basically as filler rods. I set my soldering iron to 170 degrees centigrade. That is hot enough to melt the glue, but it will not immediately damage the plastic, at least when I am careful. I use the tip of the soldering iron to melt small pieces of hot glue directly where they need to be. When there's enough, I move the tip through the molten glue to make it flow into the gaps. The plastic close to the soldering tip gets heated up too in that process and reaches nearly melting temperature. At the end, plastic and glue cool down together. That creates a very strong bond between the plastics and the glue, much stronger than just squeezing hot glue into the gap would have created. After some tests, I put the radio back together. It looks a bit different now, but I actually like the look, and it feels more heavy and sturdy. This is how it sounds. For me, that sound is more pleasant than before. It is a bit fuller and less plasticky. It still doesn't win the great sound quality prize, but for such a simple radio, I am happy with the outcome. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. And see you next time.